Hello, my name is Greg Dixon with Healthy Wealthy Nomads. Today we're here with Mindy McHorse from AWAI, the Barefoot writer. And I met Mindy at, I'll put this little banner on the screen. I met Mindy in Delray Beach, Florida, 2015 and 2017 at the AWAI Copywriter Boot Camp and Job Fair. It's a bit of a handful. Anyway, welcome, Mindy.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody out there.
Yeah, so maybe you can tell a bit of your story about how you got involved with copywriting and how you
Sure.
ended up becoming a barefoot writer.
Yes, it was. It's not something that I saw coming. I'll say that. I had always enjoyed writing, just as a hobby, just something I did growing up, but I never took it seriously. I never even considered it as something I could do as a career because, I didn't want to be poor or live on beans. I just thought it would always be something fun that I did on the side. So I made it up through college and grad school even and got a very professional job, with a corner office and benefits. And I hated it. I hated every second of it. I hated the structure and the control and the commute and the endless spreadsheets. And I had a boss who was a nice person as an individual, but not great to work with. You know what I mean? You know, that type. So I was only 26 at the time, but I was already fantasizing about retiring, thinking, I do not want to do this for the next 40 years. And it was a tough spot to be in. So I started looking at other jobs. I started thinking about jumping ship and just going to other industries. I just wanted out. And about that same time, I started getting some things in the mail about this crazy thing called copywriting. And I read a little bit about it. It totally sounded too good to be true. Recycled it in a heartbeat. Then I got a couple more things. And I remember the thought I had at the time was, how could it be possible that there's this entire career called copywriting out there that I've never heard of, even though I've kind of been writing, and reading writers' magazines for all these years. And how could it be possible that these copywriters make so much money? So I was super skeptical, but also super desperate because as the months went by, I wasn't landing any other jobs and I was just increasingly unhappy. I never got to see my fiance. I just wasn't having fun. So I started looking up these people that I was reading about called copywriters. I started looking at them online. This was actually before LinkedIn. It was about 10, 12 years ago now. But I was able to find enough information about enough of them that I started thinking, okay, this might be a real thing. And it didn't take long once I started seeing the fact that these people were real. It didn't take long for me to jump ship. I literally handed in my 2 weeks notice and came home and said, I'm a copywriter. And I started studying the programs. I started practicing. I threw my hat into the ring and said, I'm in it completely. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anything about running my own business. So I definitely just jumped in, eyes wide shut, I guess you could say. But that's when I fully connected with AWAI, American Writers and Artists Institute, which is the copywriting training company that had been sending me the information about becoming a copywriter. And this company was so accommodating, so generous with their information, so helpful to people like me who were brand new to the field and really, really wanted to make it work, desperately so, but didn't know the first thing about launching a business or being a copywriter. They basically took me by the hand. They showed me which programs to take, sort of welcomed me into their fold. And then it was at my first boot camp, which is what Greg mentioned earlier. That's the annual conference where all the copywriters affiliated with AWAI come together. It was at that boot camp that I saw with my own eyes just how amazing this career opportunity was, because that's where I got to actually meet the people I'd been reading about, the copywriters who were making 6 figures a year, writing from home, writing from their lake cabins or, beachside. And these people they were lovely and they were happy and they were real. Their stories were real. So that just energized me from there. So I kind of rolled up my sleeves, started working harder, landed more writing projects, worked pretty hard at it for a couple years. And then by my third year, so I'll be completely honest, my first year as a copywriter, I made about $17,000, which is not a lot of money. And it was considerably less than I'd been making at my previous job. On the other hand, that was, more money than I'd ever made as a writer. So it wasn't too bad. My second year, I made around $24,000. So still not a lot, but it was a raise, right? But it was my third year where I really connected with AWAI and used their resources and asked questions and made connections. And that was the year that I broke six figures. And so by the end of the year, I checked in at $100,538 for my income for that year, which was phenomenal. It's what I'd wanted. It's what I'd been hoping for. And it kind of justified my whole leap into that world. And then from there, I've been living and working happily as a copywriter ever since. And also working on the Barefoot Writer. So I'm not sure, Greg, do you want me to go on into the Barefoot Writer? I could talk about it at length, but let me know if you want me to stop.
Yeah, I'll just say a few things about this. As one of the things I don't know if you felt this when you first got introduced to AWAI, is all these ideas is like, what are you going to write about, and what are the opportunities? And I think it first struck me as I went to a breakfast session on prepping, and I didn't even know that existed. It was a thing, right? And then I realized people are just writing about things they're interested in. So there's everything from that to the high-end sales letters that are generating millions of dollars of sales, and everything in between. And what kind of writing did you do first? And maybe that ties into your barefoot writing.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So initially, I just wanted to land work. I just wanted to justify the fact that I quit my regular job. So I started applying for anything that came my way. I used a lot of online job boards. I told a friend about what I was doing. And it's interesting because I landed my first couple of writing jobs kind of all within a month of each other in three separate ways. One was a referral, a friend of a friend. One was through AWAI's boot camp, where you actually meet with marketers and they have jobs that you can apply for. And then one was through this online jobs board. And they sort of ran the gamut of topic, and type of writing, because you've got two things to consider, right? You're on one hand, you're writing about a specific niche or subject. On the other hand, there are specific types of writing you can do, like email writing, website writing, blogs, social media, case studies, white papers. And so I essentially went for anything that looked even remotely interesting, and I had a chance at, like maybe I had some kind of background in, or I thought that it would be interesting to research. But in those early years, I wrote about everything from traveling to Argentina to software, to portable electronics, to professionals who were pursuing nutrition careers, and I helped write their websites. And what happened, and this happens for quite a few writers, is I sort of gravitated toward the things that were more interesting to me. So I ended up going into business opportunity writing. In other words, writing about people who, like me, had taken a leap to do something that they were more interested in, and they just wanted more life satisfaction. So I had these two paths that I took. One was the business opportunity, and then the other was alternative medicine, because I had always been interested in medicine. I actually almost became a doctor. That was my first career path before I realized it wasn't for me, but I still find medicine and alternative medicine interesting. And when I started landing clients in that area, I really enjoyed those projects. And what you find in the world of copywriting is that when you really enjoy a project, the project is easy, it's fun, it doesn't feel like work, and it's a lot easier to come up with ideas for your client to say, hey, so we've just done this. What if we build on it and we do this, this, and this? And then the client, of course, loves that because you're the idea machine. So you're helping them grow their business. But the important step before that happens is to enjoy what it is you're talking about. Because if you're talking about something you have no interest in, then it's a lot harder to brainstorm. And so that's kind of where my path focused. And then because I was writing about business opportunity, I connected more with AWAI and wrote more about actually becoming a writer, about people taking the same path that I had just taken to leave whatever dissatisfying job or situation they were in and to strike out as a writer, as a copywriter. making a career out of copywriting. So as I wrote more about that and became more involved in this world, that's when I connected with AWAI and had the opportunity to run their magazine, which is called Barefoot Writer. And I stepped into the executive editor role, where I have been for about 10 years now. It's been a phenomenal ride because we get to connect with people like you, Greg, and lots of other people who've taken this road, who've come into copywriting and basically made it their own so that they could follow whatever path merges copywriting with their own interests and their own goals.
Yeah, that's fabulous. What I really like about the AWAI family is the enthusiasm that everybody has. And I think I would say one of the main missions is to get people starting out from scratch to understand that they can do it. Like many of the programs are, and many of the things they're doing live, it says, well, we're going to do this on live and we can see if we can get you your first paying client by the end of the week. Because it's really easy to put it on the back burner and not do the work and then be a little bit reluctant. I've known people who jumped in and were, off and running instantly, and then other people who didn't. They're at the next boot camp getting their getting their enthusiasm. But right now it's so much easier because I think AWI is broadcasting on Facebook probably 2 or 3 times a week with something. There was a thing on the user experience going on now. So, yeah.
Right.
So what would people get if they come to the Barefoot Writer, if they subscribe to the magazine or get involved with that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, because we our goal is essentially to introduce people to this world. Because like I said, when I came into the world, I'd never heard, or when I came into the writing world, I should say, I'd never heard of copywriting. I was super skeptical that you could make as much money as all the promotional materials said. It sounded too good to be true, because if you read these people's stories, it says you can make whatever income you want, whether that's, just 20,000 writing on the weekends or 6 figures. It sounds great, right? But then you add in, and you can work from home. You can write about whatever topic you want. You can wear your pajamas. You can choose the people you work with. And you're like, yeah, no, because it goes against everything we've always been told, right? We grow up thinking you have to work hard for a living. You have to pay your dues. You have to follow these tracks. And none of that's true. If you take the copywriting route, everything I just said is true. But here's where it does get hard. It's interesting. The actual craft of copywriting, learning how to write with this specific formula, learning how to connect with an audience, and even how to find clients and land the high fees, that's actually very simple, given the way that AWAI breaks it down and teaches it step by step. And they're masters at this. They've been doing it for over 20 years. They're the longest running institute in the world, longest running copywriting training institute. What's hard is the fact that we're all human, right? So we all have self-doubt. We struggle with motivation. Because you are working on your own for yourself. You have to be the one who sits down and makes out a plan and says, I'm going to do this, this, and this today. That's the hard stuff. It seems like the actual craft of copywriting would be the hard stuff, but that, once you learn it, simple. It's the part about balancing the fact that you're a human, the fact that you probably have a busy life, a family. Maybe you are still juggling another job that you're trying to walk away from. There's a lot that goes into transitioning to this career based on whatever situation you're coming from. And so the Barefoot Writer comes in and helps people who are new to this world. This was a resource that wasn't around when I first started. It basically takes people by the hand and says, okay, we get that you're interested in writing for a living. Wonderful. Welcome. Here are the things you need to consider. Here's how to stay motivated. Here's how to up your productivity. Here's how to really think like a writer. Here's how to improve your writing. Here's how to connect with clients with confidence. So we walk you through sort of those initial very human hurdles that we all run into. And then once you're feeling secure in that, then we direct you on the appropriate path that AWAI has for you in terms of writing training. because I've said it's simple. Copywriting is simple, but you do have to take the time to learn the formulas and the training. And there are different types of writing also based on the different subjects you can write about that are specific to these different areas. So let's say you want to go into direct response sales letters, which is one of the most lucrative industries. Great. There are certain things you need to learn about that. Or let's say you want to write white papers for the business to business industry. Great. But there are certain things that you want to learn about that are going to be different from writing for the direct response industry. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, the Barefoot Writer just kind of points you down whichever path is appropriate for you.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think what AWI is great for. There's a course or some kind of specialty course from almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think somebody spoke at boot camp, and he said he was hired to do, when he first started, right? And then I think he got hired to do a blog post.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a blog post, and they said, "Oh, wow, we're starting this social media campaign. We don't know anything about it. Can you help us with that?" And then, maybe a product description and maybe a white paper. And, and he said, "Oh," his answer was, yes, I can do that. And then he would go run back and he's looking it up. What the heck is that? And then AWI always says, "Well, we got a course for that. You can always reach out and we'll help you with that."
Mm-hmm.
So, you get your foot in the door. Like your path, you started doing a bunch of things, and some of them were just because those are the jobs that come up, and then you started doing things that were your passion and
Right.
your interest. And I think that's where most people really can start. I think that's the other thing is people forget that they have a lot of experience and expertise in an area. They may be new to copywriting, but they
Mm-hmm.
may be expert accountants or know something about natural health. And that's where they can start. They can find companies that are doing what they love, and many of them need help.
Exactly. So when people first come into this fold, a couple of the pieces of advice you would hear. First is that it's important to learn the foundational principles of copywriting, which is essentially persuasive writing. Once you have that foundation, persuasive writing can be applied to any type of writing project, but each of those writing projects will have their own nuances, like I was saying, with white papers versus direct response letters or blogs versus social media posts. So having that foundation in persuasive writing helps you with any subject and any type of writing that you do. The next piece of advice that we would give most people is to specialize if it feels right to you. You don't have to specialize, but it is one of the best paths forward in terms of finding writing clients and in accelerating your income as quickly as possible. So what that means is if you have a hobby that you really enjoy writing about, that could be a good path for you. For instance, a lot of people love gardening. And so they might pursue writing for gardening websites or gardening businesses in their hometown because they enjoy the writing. They're already what we call the prospect. They're basically already that person shopping at the gardening store. They know what other prospects like them want, what they're interested in, what their questions are. Those are all the kinds of things that you would write about. Or if you didn't have a hobby you wanted to write about, but maybe you had 15 years experience working in the medical supplies industry, that's another direction you could take. You could say, hey, I've got, a decade and a half of experience in the medical supplies industry. I know the jargon. I know what people are concerned about. I know what they look for when they're shopping. And so you could go to a company that sells medical devices and you could pitch your copywriting services, and they most likely would jump at that, because what you have to understand in the copywriting world is that there is so much opportunity for all these different subjects and topics and niches, because basically this satisfies a need for any business out there. If you have any business where money exchanges hands, they need a copywriter, right? They need a way to get their message out. They need a way to put together a marketing funnel that connects with prospects who most need their product or service or whatever it is that they do. And so if you have any kind of a background, whether it's your professional background, your personal interest, it could even be something that your spouse or partner or child is interested in, and you've just been exposed to it. So you know a lot about it, so you can write about it. So there are so many different paths forward. You can pick and choose whichever you want. And the other great thing about this is you don't have to stay married to that path. So let's say you want to leave your day job, because going back to that medical supply industry example, maybe you're not happy working in the industry because you'd rather work from home. You need a more flexible schedule. You'd like to be able to pick up your kids from the bus stop, whatever. you want to leave that industry, but you need to replace your income very quickly, right? Even though it's not your favorite topic, you don't really fantasize about medical devices and supplies. It's not what you talk about at a cocktail party. However, because you have that background and that experience, that would be the quickest way to make a leap to a full-time income as a copywriter. And from there, you could build samples and testimonials from clients and client projects that basically just show you're a writer. You can write, you can get results, and then you take those to transition to whatever other topic you might be genuinely interested in, whether that's alternative medicine or writing for the financial industry or writing for educational industries, right? You're not married to whichever niche you choose. You can always make a leap to another one. So that's another aspect of the incredible freedom in this industry, is that you can really just sort of tailor it and refine it to whatever you want it to be. And I've even experienced that over the last 10 years of writing. There are some areas where I've enjoyed writing and then, I'm just ready to be done with it. So I step back from that and then think, oh gosh, now, like for me, I had kids in the last 10 years. And before I was never really interested in cooking or nutrition. Now I feel like I need to know about it, right? I feel like I need to know a lot about it to feed my kids healthy things. So I've started reading all the blogs and the magazines about how to cook nutritious yet delicious things. And now I feel like it's something that I might want to pursue as a writer, just because I'm in that industry. I'm a prospect. I can write about it, and it would be awesome to go ahead and get paid for it, right? So you're not limited. There are different paths you can take that take you faster in terms of income or just landing projects, but you can always transition. You always have that flexibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also I think with the last, with the pandemic, I think people are catching up with the Barefoot Writer approach to things, because now they're having to figure out how to do things from their home or wherever they're at, because a lot of the traditional things are not available. It's coming back again, but I think a lot of it's not going to change. And maybe you can talk about the opportunities. I think what I'm hearing is even more companies are doing more things online, more marketing, more sales funnels, more video, more everything. So what do you think the potential is? I think the potential was always amazing, but I think it's even more now.
Right. Oh my goodness. It's gotten kind of crazy since the pandemic, because while it probably would have happened eventually that all businesses would have jumped online, the pandemic just accelerated that, right? Because suddenly all these small businesses, especially, or other businesses that just hadn't fully committed to an online sales process, they were forced to jump online just to survive. And what we saw in the copywriting industry is that the demand for copywriters, it skyrocketed, and it's not going down because a lot of these people, they might be great at what they do, at their profession or at selling whatever it is they sell, but they're not trained to write and sell online. So they need good copywriters, right? They might have thought, oh my gosh, I've got to get my product online for people to sell, for people to buy. But what do I do first? How do I make my website sound appealing? How do I even find my ideal prospect? Who do I send emails to? Where do I find those email addresses? These are all things that copywriters are trained to figure out, depending on which path you take. But what we're also seeing is that because there's suddenly so much demand and so many people have jumped online as a result of the pandemic, it's also not slowing down, because nobody is going to leave the online space as the pandemic hopefully eventually draws to a close. Right now, a lot of them have realized, oh my gosh, this is actually a second avenue for me to earn revenue, because maybe I can go ahead and reopen my brick and mortar shop and customers can start coming in like they used to. But now I have this other arm where I can sell online and I can reach a greater number of prospects. And this is actually a good thing. So it's not going to change. It's just going to increase. It's a good situation if you're a copywriter.
Oh, it's a fabulous situation, really. So you have I'll show a little landing page here, and it tells a bit of your story. And that's where people can get involved with the Barefoot Writer, with your publication.
Yes.
And yes, and also here, there we go. And that's the AWAI site, where I think there was the Writer's Life, a newsletter that they can sign up for and just receive notices, and especially invites to boot camp.
Yes.
Virtual and live.
Yep.
And so that's another thing that's changed too. I think many events have gone scaled up in terms of virtual events, and then also the return to the live events, and many will do both. So
I think so. I have to apologize. That was my dog snoring down here.
well,
I don't know if it came through on the feed. She's old and deaf and doesn't even realize she's doing it.
Yeah, so that's just proof we're live, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know what's neat about looking at this, the website you just had up of AWAI,
Yeah.
I know all of those writers. I've connected with them personally. I've actually interviewed them for Barefoot Writer. One of the best parts of Barefoot Writer, I mean, this is my own biased opinion, but I think a lot of people share this opinion, is that we do in-depth stories and interviews on actual writers who wanted to switch to copywriting. And it just kind of shows you that you can start from wherever and you can take whatever path you want to a joyful copywriting career. Like the woman that it just showed, that's Rachel Kraft, who actually now works as my content coordinator. She was a teacher and her husband was in the Army. So they had to move around a lot. And even though she enjoyed teaching, it's difficult to move around as a teacher constantly. And so she was able to become a writer. And now actually she teaches about copywriting. So she can still use her love of teaching, but her job moves with her when she goes places, right? She doesn't have to worry about relocating. And, you know, everybody up there, they have wonderful, inspiring, very unique stories. So I highly recommend taking a look at either the AWAI site. There are lots of case studies you can look at just to see how different people took different paths to the writer's life. The Barefoot Writer website, you see both addresses there on the bottom of your screen. The Barefoot Writer website has lots of interviews on up-and-coming writers and how they first made their leap. So if you're skeptical, like I absolutely was when I came into this world, this copywriting world, if you're skeptical, you can read these different stories and see how actually no two paths are alike, but that's exactly why this career is so rewarding, because you can really make it your own.
No, this is fabulous. And thank you very much for your time. And I think this is a great opportunity for people to consider. You know, I think everybody is a writer, really. If you're human, you're a writer. So it's a matter of learning some skills, learning some of the basics, as you said, the fundamentals. And AWAI is the best place to learn that. I learned about AWAI because Dan Kennedy, one time he said, you know, if you want to be successful in business, you have to learn copywriting, and the best place to learn it is AWAI. So that's how I ended up in Florida with you guys hanging out. Yeah. So
I'm
anyway,
certainly glad you did. And thank you so much for having me, Greg. I love what I do. So I love talking about it. It's a lot of fun, especially when, you know, talking to people like you who have seen the other side of what this lifestyle can be. So thank you so much.
They're all, and Rebecca and Katie, everybody there is just so excited. It's obvious that they love what they do, and just very happy to help support any new writers, anybody considering it. So
yes, best people.
Anyway,
well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who listened to this.
Okay, thank you very much.